Hallelujah, hallelujah. Blessed be the great King Yehudah, the great King of the universe. We give glory to his high and holy name forever and ever. He is to be praised and magnified at all times. We all must say hallelujah, thanking this most high King for our lives, food, clothing, and shelter, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. And once again, we're going through another review of another Haftarah portion. This time it will be Lecha. Thanking the Most High God for life once again, and I'm thankful because there are a lot of things that we take for granted and that we overlook. So I'm thankful for all the things, the big things, the small things, and all those things. My name is Zurishaddai. I'm one of the teachers of Congregation BINAH, CHOKMAH, located in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, New York. Our address is 382 Hamilton Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, 11231. Giving due respect first and foremost to the King of the universe, Yehudah, and also acknowledging the leader of our congregation, even Chief Prince Yariel Ben Yissaskar. Thanking the Most High God, and I'll turn it over to the teacher of the lesson, even one of my teachers, Nasik, Zurishaddai Ben Yehudah. Shalom, Nasik, how are you?
Great, Baruch Hashem. First of all, I'd like to give praises to the Supreme Eternal Universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, and due respect to the leadership on the platform, I'm on the D.C.B, leadership spiritual leader, Chief Prince Yariel, to the host, Chief Uzael, the Princess Chief, Kohanim, the Rabbanim, the brothers and sisters, greet you all, and to my forefathers, Shalom Aleichem. And I also like to say, Adonai Sabtati Takufi Yagi, Tilateaka, along with my lips, mouth should declare that praise. And also my condolences for those that had lost loved ones during the past week or so. My condolences for several members of the Israelite community that lost, close members. To get into a comment from my last talk, I seen I think a question came in reference to about the pitch, the tar that I've seen. And one of the viewers wanted me to explain about the pitch. Without going to a whole lot of stuff, because, you can always spin a lot of metaphysical and allegorical stories behind it. But I'll try to keep it as, within a realm of the plain meaning. First of all, first plain meaning is the Creator told him what he want done. That's first plain meaning. Now, the next thing being the Torah said, pitch it from within and without. The word itself that's used, the shortish of ka, fe, and resh. All right. The fe and pay is sometimes interchangeable, depends on how it's used. All right. And that has the same root as the word we call kippur. Covering, had the same word was covering, and what's unique about it in Yom Kippur is when we try to make an atonement for ourselves. So it's strange because these people was rescued from the destruction that's on the ark, as well as the animals and the fowls that's rescued on the ark. So look at that word, the picture from within and without. We could go all the way to dealing with character, dealing with spirituality, but perhaps I could do some kind of justice by saying that the word kofer, same root, ka, fe, and remind you that I said the fe could be changed to a pay sometime. I pronounce as a pay, it begins a syllable. That itself means an unbeliever. That's how you say an unbeliever or atheist in Hebrew. Ko-fe. Now, we know Noah was not an unbeliever. Those people outside were unbelievers. And hence, since they was outside, the ark should be pitched from within and without. I mean, no thought, so if I was going to use a symbolism, no thought of disbelief, atheism, recognizing as supreme being should even, permeate once you leave the ark, and none of them outside thoughts about, not believing God is in control should permeate within thought. So we know in Yom Kippur, when we talk about atonement for our sins, the word compare itself, which is the same root, it means to cover. And yet the picture actually cover. So that's pretty much all I'm going to get into, besides, numbers, value, like other kind of stuff, in reference to the pitch that's used. So I hope I explain myself pretty, halfway decent in that area. So now, when we come into the portion, the Haftarah, before I get to the portion of Haftarah, I always like to reflect, because the Haftarah gives you some correlation between the Sidra and the parts that might come from the prophets or whatever on the book. But let's look back. This Haftarah talks about Lecha. Most people, go to yourself. When we read in the scriptures, we read about Adam, the first man, in Bereshit, and we get an idea about something about Adam, from his very beginning. We goes to another great man just before the flood, which was last week's Sidra before, which was Noah. We get an introduction in somewhat of his character. Now, in Lecha, when we talk about a man, Abram, who becomes the patriarch, and the 10th generation after the deluge, after the flood, we get no introduction. All we read about is his father having these three guys, these three sons, and one son having offspring. And we read about the one son dying in the land, of Haran, on the other side of the Euphrates. And we read about, one brother getting married, Nahor getting married to one woman, and Abraham being married to another woman. And we read about Lot, and that's it, but no real introduction. All we read about is when God called Abraham at the time, from Ur of the Chaldeans. And you say, wow, now we have guys like Adam, the first man, with some kind of a resume, an occupation. We have Noah, with not only an introduction, but also an introduction on character and a resume. But with Abraham, there's no resume at all that we read about in scriptures, and yet we read in the prophecy, it said, look into the rock from which you were hewn, and the pit from which we dug. And it explained in the prophecy, as I said, that the rock was Abraham, it was Sarah. So now we're supposed to emulate them, but they never had an introduction. So sometimes your introduction is maybe as great as your movement through life. So when we say Lecha, and Abraham was told to leave, he was told to leave. First of all, I'd like to just read a little bit in the 12th before I go to the beginning. It says, now the Lord said unto Abraham, get thee out of that country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto the land that I will show thee. All right. Now, he had to step on 3 stages. 1, leave a country. Well, people could do that. They could leave from where they're born at. All right. People could leave, some relatives, and then but it says, and thy father's house. How can you really separate from your immediate family? Now you might have cousins, second, first, and all the way down to line, third, fifth cousins. Okay. But your father's house, cut ties all together. That's a strong movement there. And from Tanakh, we don't know what Abraham's plans was. And then this at the age of 75. All right. And what's interesting, Lecha, we always say means go for yourself, or go to yourself. But also to look at it in another literal sense, Lecha means go from you. So it's not just going, but you got to leave. And that's that I find that profound. So not so much even going to yourself, but more so you gotta go and leave yourself in order to become what the Creator wants you to be. And that's what I find so profound, that Abraham was told Lecha. The other stuff was difficult, it got more difficult as it went along with the father. But how do one actually say, I'm gonna leave myself and then come back to myself? That is something. And so it's got more intense. So it's not so much even becoming to what I will become. That's one thing. Say I'm gonna leave myself behind and become something, that's not me. But you're gonna leave yourself in order to develop to a self that the Creator wants in you and benefit even better. And that is a difficult situation, but that's a situation we all must do. Well, but we say in a colloquial fashion, thy will be done, let my will be your will. We say stuff like that, let my will be your will. So now, if I let it be my will, do I still maintain my own will? That's the operative question. So when we talk about Lecha, the lead, the go and go from yourself, and yet be developed according to where the Creator wants you to be developed and still be yourself, that's the task for every individual that say they serve the living God. Every individual. And then, what's interesting, he gave a lot of surety. So we don't know how he even earned that exclusive privilege. We know already Adam had one law that to obey. Was a negation, not to eat from a certain tree. He had, things being fruitful and multiply, that is, what he's supposed to do. But one law, and then he would have been a moral individual. And usually a negative law is easier to do than a positive law. A negative law usually means I must abstain from something, not permit myself to do something. That's a negative. A positive law means this stuff I got to implement. So Adam just had one negative law. And yet, if he'd have kept that right, he would have been a moral human being. But he had nobody else to compare himself to. Noah, after he was able to compare himself, he was compared to the generation that was of his time. He's a righteous individual. He walked with God. He found grace. So he had people to compare with that wasn't on his level. Now, you got Abraham. He's told to be isolated. And yet, so now Noah was compared with his generation, but Abraham and his isolation on his journey, going to have to compare himself with all those around him. So he was given, and usually to travel, you lose certain things. But one of the things that his father was on his way to Canaan, we know from the scriptures, but we don't have a clue why he was headed in that direction. It doesn't say, but we know he stopped in his track to Canaan. But when it gets to Abraham, Abraham at the time, God called him to continue that journey and put requirements on him that his father did. So, and it said they entered Canaan land for all the souls they had made. Now, this is a question for discussion. I'm not going to go into it much, but it said they made. How do human beings make a soul? And the soul is not theirs, it's somebody else's. So how do they do that? And what do that mean? And then just to move on just a little bit more, because I said try to stimulate discussions when people go back over this, in their various communities. When we look further into it, now his wife Sarah being barren. First off, last time I spoke, I said Noah was one of the oldest men that we've recorded in scriptures that get his first children that we read about. And that's Shem, Ham, and Japheth in his 500th year. We don't know how old was Mrs. Noah, but we know Noah didn't have any children until his 500th year, 500th year. And yet, now, this is the first time we read about in scriptures that somebody's barren. We never read where a female was barren before in scriptures when the first command was to be fruitful and multiply. So, Sarai, at this point, as she's called, she is barren, and she's the first woman recorded to be in such a state like that. Just, something to pay attention to as well. And she being 65 and Abraham being 75 at that point. And then when we go on, it says the first famine in the earth. We never read about famine on earth. We read about a lot of problems in the earth, but we never ever read about a famine before. So now you're the first famine. And the famine is not worldwide, it's in that spot, the place that the Creator is going to show us. And the Creator defined, he got to the spot what it was. We know he built something, but he was told to leave family behind. Lot went with them, and it said Lot went with him, not with God, not with the mission, but with him. We know Lot's father died. We don't know what the circumstances. We know some legends on the circumstances. But when we look at Lot himself, when he went with Abraham, in the East, in the ancient cultures, we got to also understand the culture of the time in order to begin to see a little bit more into the Lecha story before we even get into the prophecy. That in ancient times, in most cultures, if a man died and had a son, his oldest brother usually become the caretaker and the responsible for that son, like if it's his own child. That's part of the Hammurabi Code. That's part of the people of that particular region. We know that, and our law is similar later on. When you talk about if brothers dwell together and one died, had no child, then they would take the widow of the brother that died, have a child, and raise him up in his brother's stead. That way it'd be property. So, and I'm bringing that picture up to share certain insights. Abraham didn't leave broke, and Lot definitely, being the only son, we got whatever that Terah had for Haran, Lot would have that portion that would belong to him. So just understand the laws and stuff, how it works in our way of life, and also in ancient cultures. Another question, after the famine hit, you don't read where he even asked the Creator to go down to Egypt. So now it becomes an issue. He looks, it's a famine. The Creator already counted unto him as faith for him to start the journey. Now, how do you count somebody faithful to saying, okay, I'm going to starve? Normally, faith is something that's active. But it is that the Creator faith because Abraham believed what the Creator had. Abraham believed what the Creator had said for him, being a prosperous individual as a traveler, as a nomad. You read where Adam was an outcast. You read where Cain was an outcast. But yet, Abraham is not an outcast. He's stepping out, which is the difference. He's stepping out. So, as the first two guys read about was actually outcast, one's a fugitive. He's leaving on a positive note where he's gonna be a blessing because he meet and to the families of the earth. Now, if a man is his blessing to the families of the earth, you know he got to be somewhat good for himself. And what's unique about that is that you meet a famine, something that we never read about in scriptures before, and the Creator said, "Those that bless you will bless you, be blessed, and those that curse you, and he that curse you will be cursed." That means more people will be blessing you, and only a few individuals want to curse you. But that's another question: why would people want to curse a man whose only job is to serve the Creator and spread news about one supreme being? That's something to talk about and consider. And as he go in there, he asked for kindness to Egypt. And when he asked for kindness from his wife, he said, do this kindness for me, and say that you are my sister. Did he consider her well-being when he did that? Was it selfish that he did that? These are questions we ask because the guys we got to follow can't be no mystical individual. It got to be an individual that we're supposed to follow, male and female, that we're supposed to follow, that we can possibly emulate as human beings with their weaknesses and their strength. So that's why I raise those different things as we go along, because he asked on his behalf, but not concerning her behalf. So those are things that should be all more examined to let you know that we're not talking about mythological people. We're talking about human beings where, when it comes to survival mode. And, we know that they came out okay, even more well off. We could talk about it. So, we use the word kabed, which is, they say, they use it in the sense of rich, but it has the same root as honor and glory. But rich, but it says cattle, silver, and gold. The value system today, what we would look at is gold, silver, and cattle. But the true value is cattle, silver, and gold. More people would need to be able to sustain themselves with the cattle. Very few tools they would use for silver, and even less, which is more adornment, for gold. So when they talk about the value system, it uses the most valuable thing first, which is the cattle, which is value. And then they talk about the silver, then they talk about the gold. As we just move, just highlighting a few points in there before I go into the Haftarah, that when we look at on the way back, that they both were well off, and they talk about the herdsmen of Lot and the herdsmen of Abram's cattle. They argued, and it said the parasites, Canaanites and parasites in the land. A lot of people always, look at that and we find out, about certain, most brothers, and people always say, well, you keep family matters in the family, keep it private. But also another aspect of the view of this situation is that you got Lot and Abraham. Their herdsmen is arguing, not Lot and Abraham, their herdsmen is arguing. And and not only who the herdsmen are arguing over, it's a commentary, but I don't want to share the commentary because right now, because that's not, what I'm planning on doing today. But what's interesting is that when people focus on the Canaanite and the parasites in the land, what most people may not speak on hardly is this. You got Hamitic people, two nations, Canaanites and parasites, even though they all Hamitic. They getting along and they don't have no strife in the land. When Abraham came into the land, it says the Canaanite was in the land. So he didn't go to a land that's uninhabited. It said the Canaanite was in the land. They know that he didn't come there and it was empty. And yet when they come back and it said the Canaanite and the parasite was in the land, it didn't say they was watching. And we could assume they watched what's going on, but they didn't say they was watching. What we know is that they was able to survive together in peace and harmony in the land. And here you got immediate family that cannot survive in harmony. So that's a lesson to be considered, and also part of the prerequisite, because God told Abraham to sever himself from kinfolks, and him should be like one flesh. So Lot went with Abraham, and then say Abraham had pulled him along, even though according to the culture, it would be Abraham seemed like the one responsible for him. All right, and next thing I'd like to bring up before we go, summarizing a couple of high things to consider is that when it comes down to the area of the separation, that's when he created communion with Abraham again. And then we know Lot went into Sodom. He didn't leave the land of Canaan, but he went down to the cities. I've spoken about, he was a shepherd, nomad, but later on we read, which is coming up the next Israel, about him dwelling in the house. Most nomads dwell in tents. You ain't trying to stay too stable. You want to be on the move. Lot himself, when he goes down there to that area of Sodom and Gomorrah to become a person of the plains, then the Creator, not only Lot after a while, Creator made a promise with Abraham that he's gonna get this particular land, and then they're gonna go to his seeds. Now, name changed, before I go into the Haftarah, which is one. The first independent act, the first act of mankind, was to name all those creatures on the earth that God before him. Adam was supposed to name them. That was the first independent act on that. And then one of the interesting things is that the Creator told him that was his first independent act. Before he even did any laborer's job, that was one job he had to do. All right. When we get to Adam, his name is changed to Abraham, and we know that when we talk about how a name means everything, a name is better than gold and silver, and read in the First Samuel, 25th chapter, around up the 25th verse, about sometimes the name also implies your character and your future. A name that is given to you tends to not only identify you, but it tends to define you. And that's why you can make it good or you make it bad. So with that, I'm going to the Haftarah, which is Isaiah, because I brought out some of the things to stimulate conversation. But the Haftarah of Isaiah, who was a prophet that usually gives a lot of comfort, but a lot of times his prophecy was before, beyond his years. because he only prophesied within a period of 40 years during the 4 kings, but his prophecy extended beyond the years of the captivity of in Babylon. So now in the 40th chapter, he's talking to the people that was in Babylon, though Isaiah himself didn't live during that period. So as we go on and read from the 40th chapter of Isaiah, and we're going to pick it up.
We're in the book
27
of Isaiah. Ready?
Yes.
We're in the book of Isaiah, chapter 40, starting from verse
27.
27. Hallelujah. Why sayest thou, O Yaakov, and speaketh, O Yisrael, my way is hid from Yehovah, and my right is passed over from my God? Hast thou not known, hast thou not heard that the everlasting God, Yehovah, the creator of the ends of the earth, fainteth not, neither is weary? His discernment is past searching out.
Hold right there. Hold right there. Before we get to 29. All right. Why say that? And it's talking about the nation of Israel, and speak as O Israel. And they talk about my ways as passed over. In other words, we know we're in captivity at this point in time, and we act like the Creator ain't looking out for us. Can't you see that we're in a situation? Why you're not helping us? So now, at the beginning of the chapter, it's talking about it's comfort, and it's comfort of people. But the people can't see the comfort when they're in a situation, and that's why it says, "Has thou not known? Has thou not heard?" I said that when they use the term Lamar, it's not really necessarily you're looking for a reply. When I use the word Madua, which is why, then I want to gain some insight. But when I use the word Lamar, I'm not necessarily looking for a reply, but because literally it means for what, and we just say why, in English. But so you're supposed to know this. You're supposed to recognize. You're supposed to come to terms to this. I'm gonna tell you something that you really should realize. And it says, the creators of the ends of the earth faith not, neither is weary. Say, no, I made everything. I'm not, and should I get weak? Should I get slack? Should you wear me out? All right. And he said, he gave power to the faint. Keep going, 29. He gave power to the faint. Yes.
Verse 29 reads, he giveth power to the faint, and to him that have no might, he increaseth strength. Even thy youth shall faint and be weary.
Keep going to finish it out. And the young man.
Even thy youth shall faint and be weary, and the young man shall utterly fall.
Okay.
But they that wait for Yehovah shall...
Keep going. Finish it out.
But they that wait for Yehovah shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint.
Right there. All right. So now, when we look at that, give a strength to the weary, and they use the word koah. It is a young man's thing. How do young men get tired and weary of doing certain things? Get tired of praying. And so it's more so the young man situation is talking about there, that you young and strong. Why you give up all of a sudden? And when it goes on, it says, but they that wait for the Lord to renew their strength. All right. That's talking about the older guy, the older guy himself, because he been around for a moment. He had time in and say, well, I've been praying, I've been hanging in there and everything like that. And it seems like things are not going my way. Seems like the Lord is a little bit slow in trying to pull me out this jam. A lot of us been in situations like that where when we fall into a situation, we want the problem solved yesterday, but we took maybe a couple of months or more headed towards that situation. But we want the problem solved yesterday yesterday, not today. Like if we never had that experience and gone through it. But this here going into the 41st chapter said they should run and not be weary. They should walk and not faint. Now the 41st chapter, the same book, Isaiah.
It reads, chapter 41 reads, verse 1, keep silence before me, O islands, and let the peoples renew their strength. Let them draw near, then let them speak. Let us come near together to judgment. Who have raised up one from
hold it. Now, I just want to bring this point out here. When it says, keep silent before me, O islands, and let people renew their strength, and let them draw near, then let them speak. Come together to judgment. Let's come together and near. Let us come near. Let us come near to judgment. In other words, now these are outsiders. These ain't Israelites talking about now. Those people that got us in the situation. Those people that said, look at y'all. Y'all down and out. Y'all in Babylon. They're supposed to have this going on and that going on. So the Creator said, let them build up their case. Let them get strong. And then let them come up here and start running their mouths about, I'm not dealing with this people. I'm not able to save this people. I done gave up on this people. This remind you similar to what Moses said at the setting of the golden calf. When they said, if you destroy these people as one man, the Egyptians and the people are going to say, it's because you weren't able to do this. And yet we created a great. What I like to speak about more so, I'm gonna be going kind of quickly through the Haftarah, is that before the Babylonian captivity, we had problems with idols, which we're going to get into a little bit before when we get to the 16th verse. But after the Babylonian captivity, we never ever had a problem with idol worship anything. We never had a problem with worshiping other gods after that. This is a historical truth. But other people, while we in the captivity, while we in the situation, other people look at you and they are saying your God is not this and not that. But let's read a little bit further. You ready?
It reads.
Yeah. Third.
Verse 2. Who have raised up one from the east, and whose steps victory attendeth. He giveth nations before him, and maketh him rule over kings. His sword maketh them as the dust, his bow as the driven stubble. He pursueth them and passeth on safely. The way with his feet he treadeth not.
Hold it there. All right, before we get there. We read about Abraham beating those 4 kings for 318 trained servants and a couple of fish. Don't you know, one of the most amazing things is that where 5 kings couldn't deal with them, he was able to conquer them. And not only that, the guy he's going to meet, if we believe is, Melech Sedek is actually Shem, he's still killing some of his own people. At that time. And also, Abraham, who was named at that time Abraham, where he going to go? What going to be the repercussions? So the Creator let it know, look, Abraham was able to do something that he shouldn't have been able to do. If 5 kings couldn't beat 4 kings, how do 318 guys and a few other Confederate guys wipe them out and bring everybody back intact and their stuff and remain not in hiding, but in the open without any reprisal? This is what the Creator bringing out here. All right, read a little bit further. Yes.
Verse 4 reads, who have wrought and done it? He that calleth the generations from the beginning, I, Yehovah, who am the first, and with the last am the same.
Okay. Now I think the word they use for last acrony. Actually, a whole lot of people going to be passing before, and the Creator going to still be here. Where Rishon is more like the singular, the first, But when they use the plural form, of the lands, they said, yeah, a lot of people gonna be passing by. They're gonna be up out of here. Those guys you thought gonna be forever. All these monuments and things are gonna be here forever. All these type of gods you thought was gonna be outlasting me. I had to bring you could research and see they even existed. But go ahead. Good.
Verse 5 reads, the isles saw and feared, the ends of the earth trembled. They drew near and came. They helped everyone his neighbor, and everyone said to his neighbor, be of good courage. So the
hold right there before you go any further. Before you go that, be of good courage. Hold it right there. One of the things that the Creator don't change. He don't need to change, because when he says something, that's it. When you got to make a change, not only change is uncomfortable, but change means that I'm not satisfied with what I am at the state I'm in. That's why it's important that we serve a Creator that does not change, because he's already in a perfect state where there's no way he can prove on himself being just absolute. So that's one of the great things about it. So now in the seventh verse it says, they help everyone his neighbor, and sixth verse, and everyone said to his brother, be of good courage. Seventh verse.
Seventh verse reads, so the carpenter encouraged the goldsmith, and he that smootheth with the hammer him that smiteth the anvil, saying of the soldering, it is good. And he fastened it with nails, that it shall not be moved. But
hold right there. Right, before we get to that. People, and this is a message, this Isaiah message to the Israelites, that people worship idols, that build up idols, that do all that kind of stuff. They take, and the next guy, if he would cut it, say, come brother, I want you to turn it out good, do a good job on this. I'm pulling for you. And they put all their effort in to make the idol, and they say the idol is better than them. But yet, and they look to the idol for salvation, stuff of that nature. So they encourage one another, whether you're in gold, you're making idols in gold, whether you're making idols in wood, whether you're making idols in pottery. They all say, look, let's see, we could make a good pseudo god. And so what is that comparing with? Say, if an idol maker, because the next verse is going to explain it a little bit more. But if an idol maker could say, look, I'm going to reinforce my faith in something I'm making, then how do Israel lose their faith in something that made them? That's the difference. A guy working on a false object is encouraging another false guy to do good and putting all his faith in that false object. And here we got a God that created us, and we ain't got no faith in the God that created us, but yet the idol worship got more faith in something that he's producing and being encouraged. So that go further, but it goes, we'll find out what else he got to say. 8. Yes.
Verse 8, but thou, Yisrael, my servant, Yaakov, whom I have chosen, the seed of Abraham, my friend, thou whom I have
right there. That's important. That's important right there. All right. Saying, look here. Not only tell us our job, our position, but he also saying that I chose you. You didn't really choose me right away. I chose you because of what? Because the seed of Abraham, and it translates my friend, because most people know as a Haftarah, which literally would mean my beloved. But that's why we got this undeniable connection, because he promised Abraham that this land would be for their seed forever. And you notice one thing about the Lecha, the Creator, Abraham didn't doubt the Creator about having seed. He only asked for a sign, is whether they're going to be able to stay in the land, because you're dispossessing people, the Amorites and everybody else out that land. So when we go back to Lecha, it's not so much whether Abraham needed a sign whether you're going to have children. He needed a sign, is my children going to be still there? Because you're getting rid of some other people out of there. And this is why he let him know that this was my love. And he used the word seed because I don't only want to confirmation about my children going to perpetually have this spot. All right, so we can pick it up from the 9th. We got a few more verses.
Verse 9 reads, Thou whom I have taken hold of from the ends of the earth, and called thee from the uttermost parts thereof, and said unto thee, Thou art my servant, I have chosen thee, and not cast thee away. Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I strengthen thee, yea, I help thee, yea, I uphold thee with my victorious right hand. Behold, all they that were incensed against thee shall be ashamed and confounded. They that strove with thee shall be as nothing and shall perish. Thou shalt seek them and shalt not find them, even them that contended with thee. They that warred against thee shall be as nothing and as a thing of naught. For I, Yehudah thy God, hold thy right hand, who say unto thee, Fear not, I help thee.
All right, keep going.
Verse 14. Fear not, thou warn of Yaakov, and ye men of Yisrael.
Okay.
I help thee.
Right. All right. Well, we can finish that verse.
I help thee, saith Yehudah, and thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Yisrael.
Okay. Now, why in 14 verses says, Fear not, thou worm, Yaakov? You know, ain't that comparing us to a worm? Why is that compared? You say, well, don't you call me no worm? But we know guys I grew up with, they call them worm. They say, yo, worm. But we don't mean it normally in a good way. But when the Creator prepares us to a worm, he's actually saying, and the worm is that the worm's power is in his mouth. That's his strongest asset, his mouth. He can't constrict anybody like a boa constrictor. All right. So, and he don't even poison people with their mouth. You know, all the worm do is just eat soil and just go ahead like that. That's it. That's the only thing he got. So, we as Israel, what we have is our mouth, our prayers. It said that the meditation of my heart, the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable before thee. That's all I got. I can't beat this guy by going there toe thumping, doing all kind of martial arts, doing all kind of wrestling moves, doing all kind of boxing jabs and stuff like that. I only can win this situation with prayer and hope that the Creator answers my prayer. And I find favor with the Creator. So he reminded Israel, look, do what you're good at. Do what you're good at. When other nations hear such laws and statutes as these, they say, surely this is a wise and understanding people. Our power is in our mouth. That's our power. That was David's power, though he was able to fight, but it let you know that it's the words that you have when you cry loud. And that's what Abraham had. Abraham's going around to talk about one God that's still in control of everything and how we should only serve and have obedience to this one God. See, that was the difference. Abraham was when his name was changed, supposed to go out and be a light unto the world. And Israel picked up that battle. All right, let's pick it up in the last couple of verses here.
It reads, verse 15, Behold, I make thee a new threshing sledge having sharp teeth. Thou shalt thresh the mountains and beat them small, and shall make the hills as chaff. Thou shalt fan them, and the wind shall carry them away, and the whirlwind shall scatter them. And thou shalt rejoice in Yehudah. Thou shalt glory in the Holy One of Yisrael. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. See, one of the things about this is that once we know from whence cometh our help, and we know how to address our Creator, and we know how to fall on our knees, outspread our hands before this God, no matter what the situation is, we're going to be victorious if God, if I find us worthy. We're going to be victorious. We're never going to have a revolution where we're going to physically get out of the situation. We didn't physically have a revolution to get out of Egypt. We have a physical revolution to get out of Babylon. And we're not going to have a physical revolution to get out of the situation out the four corners of earth where we're scattered. The only revolution and the only solution to this revolution is our prayer, and that the Creator hear our prayer. And so with that, I hope you guys know what I said. And any mistakes from my own, not necessarily. And any questions about what I said? Sometimes I speak a little fast. I'm trying to slow down somewhat. So, but any questions from my own, and you can just leave it in the chat. And with that, I say everybody have a great week. And Shalom Aleichem, and a good Shabbat to come up. All right. Yeah, you actually live in that household where you're under authority to try to create another authority entity of that, because first of all, when you it's still family property, and you only can inherit, and that's why most people like to talk about inheritance, because inheritance means somebody died. So before you die, you really, you're still on the family property, but you don't have an inheritance until the father is actually dead. He can say, well, this part gonna go to you, this part go to such and such. But, and like I said earlier, legal ownership and possession is two different things. So you might have legal ownership to a certain thing, but you don't have possession of it. And that's why the thing about inheritance, and when you talk about the law of inheritance, is always a real sensitive subject, because in order to inherit, somebody had to leave. So you still haven't, so you're not actually your mother. That means you started a whole nother family tree here, but you still part of that family. Exactly. The part they're going to belong to you to pass down to, because now, it's still going to be, like, say, we got, each tribe had their own territory and each family had their own territory, property. So the more kids you got, the more it's subdivided. And after generations go down, it'd be, somebody, and people tend to live together because they say, okay, I might have another house. You got your house, and they got I got my house. But we don't divide this land so much over so many generations. If you're fortunate enough to have that many kids that stay, be a bunch of children, and the land having to be kind of small, right? Because remember, the land is supposed to increase as we increase. So that means territories increase. But in the beginning, it's going to take a while before you increase and say, well, how many acres you're going to need to suffice a family. So that will come with time, when more people gravitating to it, and that's why the land, no matter what, goes back to its owner in the year Yovel.
When kids move and they go thousands of miles and hundreds of miles over, do they how do you look at that? How do you look at that today? Because often, a lot of times, kids, they leave, they start their lives in wherever state they went to school with, too, and then they build up their families, hundreds and thousands of miles away from their parents. What's your view on that scenario, and how some children might do things like that? Do you think that that's feasible today, or do you think that there is something against Torah in that?
Well, in actuality, like I mentioned about the Lecha story, and what's easy to leave country. It's easy, then it get harder. Regular family members. Name of his house. That's the, So that is the most hardest thing to do, to leave from your roots, just immediate family. So it never was a good thing in Torah for us, but we made in America in the 2021. It was never a thing to move out so far out where we become individualized from our immediate family. That's why they have so many family reunions today. Well, Abraham was commissioned to do that for a specific reason. That's why he had those specific promises. You gonna have a name for yourself. That means everybody gonna know you. Most people that travel don't be known anywhere because they're not anywhere long enough. So you're gonna also have some substance. So now most people that travel, anybody that move twice in 1 year, can always say, I had to get rid of so and so because this spot I couldn't use it over here. I couldn't make it over here. I didn't have the room for it over here. And you always want to say, well, I'm gonna damage it if I move it, or I'm damaging it while I'm moving it. Or I don't want it anymore, and I'm gonna replace it. So you're always leaving something behind. So movement is never comfortable, and change is always uncomfortable. So that was not Torah. Everybody stayed on the property, and some people in the South would say, "Well, this is our family property." Well, do any of the family still live on the property? Somebody that couldn't go anywhere. And say, and that's what happened with a lot of people from the South. That's how a lot of people want to go to the South, because a lot of people die out. Whoever's there die out, and other people don't forgot they even had any property. And the government, with the taxes and everything, they take it, and next thing you know, the place is all brought up. So that was never a Torah thing, and it's not a good thing in order to get away. But in this diaspora here, when kids go away to college, you might send them there for a particular learning, but the thing is that they're supposed to be able to come back home. That's the problem. Most people don't never want to come back home and not, build up where they're from. And what's strange is that most people, and I'm not bring this out. What's strange is that most people from the Caribbean, if they really came over here and be successful, after a certain time, they try to go back. They send back money, and they try to go back, and they try to keep a tie in. Even if they got to do like what they call a snowbird type thing, go there in the wintertime, come back over here, to make sure they keep the possession here. They tend to do that. People in other countries, in European countries, they send that money back to their country if they came over here, whether it's in Africa, Europe. They send that money out and they try to get something going on here, but they try to go back to where they're from and where their family's at. So very few people stack over here is because they have nothing left over there, period.
So then we would say what happened with Abraham was an anomaly, because that was something that wasn't standard for you to leave your father's house. But because there was a command of the Most High, then it was something that was unique to his situation. Am I correct?
That's why I said, and he believed the Creator, and they counted it as faith. Counted it as faith because he made the move without hesitation, without question. So, and that's why. But I'll make a move like that too if I'm guaranteed everything gonna be successful. I mean, I'm guaranteed that I'm getting rid of all of this, and what when I meant to leave it open for the people, but when I say Lecha, leave yourself, go away from yourself, be yourself and find your better self. That means that your morals, and your relationship to the Creator is necessary for you to develop yourself. That's what Abraham's mission was. To be a blessing to the world. How are you gonna be a blessing? About morals and observance and your relationship to the Creator, and that gonna also enhance you. So when you reach a certain plateau, then that's better than where you at, because you can't develop that over here. You only could develop that on this mission statement. And that's why movement is important. When a person is stagnant, then there's no movement, then it's going to be regression after a while. So that's one of the important things. So Abraham, everybody's not Abraham like that. That's number one. And, with that mission, that's why he was chosen as specific with no introduction about his past, because his past is not important. It was his future that was important. So we don't read about his past in the Tanakh. Yeah, I mean, I know about all these other midrashims and, legends and stuff like that. But I'm saying that we don't read about that in the Tanakh, because in Tanakh, his past is not important. Who his mother was, how he was, that's not important. All those are the other side things. What's important was the mission statement. That's what Torah puts down. And that's what Moses recorded for us to learn from.
Yes. So, I was asking that because I know that in Isaiah it says, look unto Abraham and look unto Sarah, right? So some people might look at that, some young people might look at that and say, well, Abraham went on his journey, so I have to take my journey and abandon, in some ways, abandoning your parents, especially when it's like an only child situation. And your parents live in one whole nother city, another state, and you live in a whole nother city in another state, and then that becomes a complication. So it was just it was food for thought, like how you say it. I thought it was something that would.
I'll throw this out here. Later on, as we get in the next schedule, Abraham puts out Ishmael. But how far did Ishmael go in order to be at his father's burial? So I mean, his mother was headed back to Shur on the way to Egypt. That's where she was from. But yet, he stayed in a certain proximity to his father, even though he was put out. And he came to the burial. So if anybody gonna learn anything from that, Abraham was chosen, for a particular mission with certain stipulations that was applicable only for him. Nobody else, unless you got a mission like that. Let's see, most people when they leave to go away, and that's what I'm saying, go for self, could be selfish if you don't have an agenda. So if you look at Lecha as going for self, then that's being selfish, egotistical, edging God out and everybody else out. So that's why it's good to understand what the Lecha is, because the gematria for Lecha, the numerals is 100. At 100, he got what he wanted. At 100 years old, he got what he wanted.
Hallelujah. So also teaches us never to give up on our dreams.
Well, let's keep the vision. Because dreams take too much open. Yeah. Keep hope alive, as they say, but keep the vision. Because at least you can see it a little bit clearer with the vision. The dream you got is Mercury. It's not one dream in the scriptures that's clearly defined.
I hear you. Nasik. Toda Rabbi. I just had those questions in my mind, and sometimes it's good for to open up the study and to make people know that people, and if you have any questions out there, feel free to leave them in the comment. Prince Zurishaddai does, Nasik Zurishaddai does look at them, and he does answer your questions. So please,
if I can,
if he can answer it. So please leave your questions below in the comments. Leave your comments, whether you like it, whether you don't like it. Just leave whatever you're happy with, whatever you're unhappy. I know some of you right now, we're working through some troubles with the audio, but we will have that hopefully fixed in the next couple of weeks, and we'll get it operating the way that we had it operating before. So just bear with us a little while, and we'll get that fixed in a couple of weeks. So thank you once again, Nasik, for joining us. We'd like to thank all of the listening audience. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video. Let everyone know about this knowledge that Nasik Zurishaddai is sharing with us, and let us all continue to give glory to the Most High God. Shalom, shalom, Nasik.
And support the D.C.B channel as well. You know, I mean, you know, monetarily as well.